I have a question for you. What makes a good zombie game? Is a good zombie game a game that has intricate and interlocking gameplay that challenges you and lets you engage with the game in an overarching flow that feels natural and fun and exciting? Is a good zombie game a zombie game that has an overarching story with characters that you meet throughout the game and grow attached to and learn more about through character arcs and moments of passion and terror and trauma? Is a good zombie game a zombie game that lets you go honey-baked hog wild with crazy weapons of mass destruction and chaos? I want you to keep in the back of your mind what, to you, is a good zombie game, because that is going to be the background subject matter for today's adventure. Today I'm going to be talking about a character whose abilities I feel are the antithesis to what a good zombie game should be. I've had multiple video projects in the past that I've given up on because they just kind of snowball and they end up ballooning to such an egregious size that the hyperfocus wears off and I don't ever finish them. I'm really trying hard this time around to keep focused on this project and not lose sight of it, and what started out as a basic bog standard YouTube happy funny haha video let's play review video has now turned into a monster of a project. There's a lot of points and tangents and conversations that it's getting difficult for me to decide which of those is going to be on the cutting room floor and which of those is going to be in the main big video. One of the points of note that I want to bring up is specifically how I feel about a character named SPECTRe in the game. The reason where I have honed in on him is because one of the overarching talking points I want to include in the video is the gameplay and how I feel about how the gameplay is overall, as you do with the video talking about a video game, because duh. But I don't want to get too bogged down in the weeds about my specific feelings when it comes to SPECTRe. So I've opted to make this video and basically isolate all of the problems I have with him in particular and his abilities. There will be a mention of my objections with him in the main video, but I didn't want to get too sidetracked and have my video feel too unfocused, like it was just a bunch of side tangents staple gunned together. I want the main video to have flow and feel like each section coherently ties to the next one, and I just don't feel like I can get all of my thoughts about SPECTRe and how I feel he's the antithesis to what a zombie video game should be, or at the very least, what abilities in a zombie video game should be. This video is inherently just going to be 5 to 10 minutes of bitching about SPECTRe and bitching about how I think the game did him dirty. There's a companion piece and a sister video to this one that is exclusive and over on my Patreon, where I decided in my infinite wisdom to challenge myself to beat Resident Evil Raccoon City playing as SPECTRe, only using the Lightning Hawk, among other restrictions including not being able to use abilities or other weapons, no primary weapons, no grenades, none of that fun stuff. Suffice to say, that has gone interestingly so far. By the time you see this video, that video should also be out over on my Patreon. You can look at my Patreon exclusive videos. There's extended cuts of videos I put over on my gaming channel, and bonus videos like the one I'm talking about now with the Lightning Hawk run. Back to the point of this video though, I want to talk about how I feel that SPECTRe sucks, and a lot of his abilities don't really make that much sense to me, and I feel like he's the worst character to play as in this game.
Alpha Leader, we're in position. Copy. Stand by. You guys must be the new Delta team. Report.
My name is Bertha. Ready to play.
Name's Belway. Nice to meet you, Mr. Death. SPECTRe here. All set.
Whenever you boot up a lobby or you boot up the main campaign for Resident Evil Raccoon City, you have a couple options. Now, I didn't get to play this game in its heyday. Xbox Live is since dead, and I played this on the Xbox 360 copy. I didn't even engage with this game until literally this year. In fact, my main video on this game is going to include a lot of information about how this was my first time playing it this year. I missed the Xbox Live and the multiplayer aspects of it, but from what I can glean, when you get into a lobby, either ambient players that join you can pick a character depending on what slot they land in. I think it's something akin to when people join you in Castle Crashers, they're usernames line up to whatever player slot they have. But for the most part, you as an individual player, especially playing this nowadays on original hardware, i.e. like I did with the Xbox 360, the only options you have are to change the various characters in the slots without being able to edit their gear, and you can edit all of your gear and your abilities in the first player slot all the way to the left. You have 4 options with your particular player slot. You can pick your character, you can pick your character's abilities, and then you can pick a primary or a secondary weapon. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet and to the beat as best as I can, because the details of all of this are not that relevant to this specific video, and more details will be contained in the main video whenever I get that done. For our purposes here, in order for you to understand why you should never play SPECTRe if you decide to pick this game up, we're going to go ahead and go into our ability menu, which is the third from the bottom or second from the top. In the abilities menu, each character has 2 passive abilities and 3 active abilities. When you first start up the game, you actually have to spend experience points to unlock these initially, which I think is kind of cool, but once they're unlocked forever, and you can even upgrade them. Outside of the Lightning Hawk run, I haven't really played SPECTRe that much, so I just kind of kept all of his abilities at level 1 because I didn't really see a reason to upgrade them, which is the crux of this whole video, and that he sucks. Once you pick your abilities, you pick your character, you pick your guns, off you go, Bob's your uncle, you get to play the video game. The main differences between characters in this game is their passive and active abilities. In terms of the shooty shooty bang bang gunplay, they're pretty much unilaterally the same across all individuals. The only special thing about each character is their passive and active abilities. If you turned all of them off, all of them would play the exact same, especially in terms of their shooting, which is the primary thing you'll be doing, that and debatably on top of melee, but I don't engage in melee much in this game unless I see a moment where it's going to be fun. As an example, sneaking up on people when you're playing vectors, pretty cool, but outside of that, melee in this game kind of sucks. So the 2 main ways you're going to be engaging with the game is either with your gun or your abilities. I'm going to give you a rundown example of another character's abilities and how they engage with the world, so when we go over SPECTRe's abilities, you can greatly see why he is an absolute trash can of a character.
Call me Lupo, Delta Team Squad Leader.
This is Lupo. Lupo is Delta Team's squad leader and canonically the wolf mommy, apparently. I don't know, man, Resident Evil's weird. There's a lot of euphemisms with animals throughout this series. I know Resident Evil Raccoon City is non-canonical, but they would go on to use the wolf moniker for Chris Redfield's current team, but I digress. Lupo has a smorgasbord of good abilities. Her 2 passive abilities are body armor and quick reload. Body armor reduces the total damage taken and can be upgraded when it already starts off pretty good at being able to tank a total of 10% of enemy incoming fire. So, at level 1, you're already deducting 10% of the enemy's total damage off the moniker, and it can go all the way up to 30%. On top of that, her reload speed, when you first unlock her passive reload ability, is at 33% and can go all the way up to 100%, making a total of 200% faster reload speed, basically making her a walking machine gun with any gun. Now, when I say machine gun, I don't mean like the literal terminology, I mean she's a machine with any gun. Her abilities are nothing to scoff at either. Lupo has Guns A-Blazing, which, when first purchased, lets you have an infinite amount of ammo for 10 seconds and improves your recoil. And this can be upgraded up to 15 seconds with major recoil and accuracy improvements. Lupo has Incendiary Rounds, which on first purchase gives you 10 seconds of fire bullets for your gun. This can go all the way up to 15 seconds, which 15 seconds is a lot of time in this game. By the way, her Incendiary Rounds, I would argue, are her weakest ability, because all it does is give you fire bullets, even if its max strength is for 15 seconds longer than normal. But that's still pretty good. Her final ability, which I didn't use that often, is probably one of her best, if not the best. I would say it's a toss-up between Guns A-Blazing and Super Soldier. Super Soldier literally negates hits. You can upgrade her at her level 3 to tank 5 total hits and basically negate them for up to 12 seconds, and on top of that, her damage and weapon accuracy are increased. So her 3 abilities are Fire Bullets, Infinite Bullets, or Giant Wolf Mommy. You want to know what SPECTRe's abilities are in comparison to this already great character? Butt, booty, and ass. Now listen, to give credit where credit's due, the passive abilities aren't actually that bad. I don't want to be over-exaggeratory and say that every ability ever sucks, but for the most part, most of his abilities suck. SPECTRe's passive abilities are proximity detection and item detection. Proximity detection increases the size of the minimap on the HUD, and it also reveals enemies and even qualifies them by type. You can see the difference between a human enemy with a gun, a zombie, or some other type of biological weapon like lickers, for an example. Item detection's pretty good, especially if you want to do collectibles cleanup. What's kind of annoying about item detection, and this is just a nitpick, it's not really a bad thing, is that special collectibles are not marked on the map. An example being the cameras you can blow up in the hospital. But outside of that, item detection actually is fairly good. I don't think either of these passive abilities are worth spending the XP to upgrade them, because realistically they're a minor helpful thing and not actually a benefit for the overarching gameplay. The passive abilities are the best that SPECTRe has. All of SPECTRe's abilities have to do with detection and observation. In fact, they kind of bleed into each other, and I had to pull up the Wikipedia page on the ResidentEvilFandom.com to make sure I was remembering which ability is which. I thought about starting with the worst ability first, and then maybe the least worst ability first, but they're all interchangeably useless. We'll start with barely what the best one debatably might be, which is biothermal vision. Biothermal vision allows you to see soldiers and other living targets certain lengths of meters away. This ability's effectiveness depends on how much XP you put into it. When you first buy it, you can see enemies clear as day 20 meters away at max for 10 seconds. The health of targets can be distinguished by their color markings, and you can actually gauge to a vague degree on how much enemy health remains as you're engaging a target. On paper, this sounds useful. In practice, it doesn't fucking matter because the time to kill is instantaneous half the time. This could kind of sort of debatably be useful on bigger and better bioweapons down the line in the later game, but for the most part, no, this is just worthless. It's more gimmicky than actually practical. Sonar vision is a similar thing. Sonar vision emits a pulse that allows you to see and spot enemy targets and allies through walls and other objects. On first purchase, you have 20 meters at max range for 10 seconds. Biothermal vision and sonar vision are just remixes of each other, and it's literally just looking at enemies the ability. Threat scanner is just a remix of the other two again. Threat scanner allows you to scan for enemy targets. Any enemies identified by the threat scanner are automatically relayed to your minimap. The only difference between this and the other two is this is a physical object you have to throw into the world to make use of. So if you want to scan enemies in a particular area, throw your Pokeball and have fun. Not only is it bad in and of itself that most, if not all of these abilities are arguably just remixes of each other, that basically do the same thing just slightly differently, but the main arcing problem is how they interact with the enemy in the game. Remember earlier in the video I talked about the two main ways, technically three, but mainly the two ways you are going to interact with enemies in this game is either shooting them or using abilities. Again, the technicality is melee. If you want to melee, fine. You can melee enemies, you can shoot them, or you can use an ability. With LUPO, who we went over, the way she interacts with enemies through her abilities enhances her combat prowess. We could go through the rogues gallery of other characters and go through all their abilities, but I really don't need to do that to hammer home what the problem with SPECTRe really is. SPECTRe's main problem is his abilities' interactability or lack thereof. Breaking down one of LUPO's abilities as an example, the incendiary bullets. How do the incendiary bullets interact with the enemy? They light things on fire. Pretty simple, pretty useful, pretty fun. How does most, if not all of these abilities in the same way interact with enemies? They detect them. The threat scanner farts out a stun grenade type beat, but I don't think that should really count because it doesn't even fucking work half the time. I didn't really touch on that because these abilities blend together so much, I was struggling to remember which one is the one that is the Pokeball that you throw out, because of how useless it is. Every single one of SPECTRe's abilities just revolves around detecting enemies, and that's it. Every single enemy in this game isn't hiding from you. There are no invisible enemies in this game. There are invisible enemies in the Resident Evil series, but there's no invisible enemies in this game in particular. My conspiracy theory with SPECTRe is I think most, if not all, of his abilities are multiplayer oriented. Especially with his two base abilities that have to do with the minimap. Sure, one's for collectible detection, but the other one, proximity detection, feels like something you'd want more in Battlefield or Call of Duty than a Resident Evil game. All of the enemies in this game are actively trying to find you and kill you. When you break it down, there is not a single enemy in this game that needs you to find them. Every single enemy in this game tries to find you, will find you quickly, and will start trying to kill you very quickly. Most of these abilities, if not debatably all of these abilities, would be for an enemy that tries to hide from you or plays cat and mouse games. Since none of the enemies do that, detecting them is fucking pointless. Debatably, arguably, if we're being generous, the little Pokeball that stuns people and the thermal vision that lets you know how close an enemy is to death is kinda sorta useful, but that's just being charitable for the sake of charity. Every single one of these abilities sucks and is useless. Going back to the beginning of the video, when I said, keep in mind what, in your opinion, is a good zombie game. Is any zombie game you can think of that you have thought of since the beginning of the video in general, involving just detecting enemies, just detecting zombies, and that's it? No, you want to interact with the zombies. You want to kill them, run away from them, do something that isn't just, hey, look, a zombie. And that there is where the problem lies. None of these abilities interact with the enemies in a meaningful way. Not the zombies, not the human enemies with guns, not the advanced bioweapons like the lickers and the hunters. All of these abilities are like, hey, here's enemies, and that's about it. It's not really that useful if you wanted to argue the nitty-gritty and play devil's advocate to know how much health an enemy has left, because the time to kill is so rapid, even for the hunters and things like that, and the other advanced bioweapons you'll see in the game. Knowing how close they are to death is cool, but it's not useful. It's not something you really need. It's not something that gives you any sort of benefit. There is no other gameplay mechanic that is going to help you to know how close an enemy is to death. If you wanted to be nice, you could argue target acquisition, i.e. if you see one enemy that's tough is more dead than the others, maybe you want to focus fire that one, but that's just arguing devil's advocate for the sake of arguing devil's advocate. Same thing with the threat scanner. There's a bunch of enemies that direction. Cool. SPECTRe sucks. Do you think I'm wrong about SPECTRe? Do you think there's a character that's worse? Did you actually ever play this game? What's your favorite animal? And above all else, I thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you stay safe out there.